In this investigation, we're delving into the tragic and mysterious case of Amanda Winkowski, a young woman whose disappearance and a horrifying discovery would leave a trail of more questions than answers. The case was plagued by deception, cover-ups, and a deeply flawed investigation. Amanda's body was discovered, unclothed, inverted, and frozen solid inside a trash receptacle. Yet, authorities ruled her death an accident. Amanda's life was marked by tragedy from beginning to end, but the circumstances of her death are particularly disturbing. So, what really happened to Amanda? How did she end up in a trash can during a harsh New York winter? Before we break down the entire case, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth true crime documentaries, and ring that notification bell so you won't miss a single update. And drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from. It's always astounding to see the global reach of these stories and the number of people worldwide who are committed to uncovering the truth. Your engagement is what keeps these narratives in the public eye and helps ensure the victims' memories are honored. All right, let's get into the facts. Amanda Winkowski, known to her friends as Manda, was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. She graduated from Niagara Wheatfield High School in 2006. According to her mother, Leslie, Amanda was once crowned Miss Teen Buffalo. She was a multifaceted young woman, involved in everything from dance and swimming to gymnastics. In high school, she was exploring all her options and seemed to be on a promising track. Amanda's primary ambition was to become a police officer. She had a strong desire to make a positive impact. By all accounts, she was intelligent, attractive, and remarkably resilient. It was around this time that Amanda also obtained her police officer certification from the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, or BOCES. But this is where her life's trajectory took a dark turn. She was just one step away from realizing her dream. There's a saying that you are the company you keep. According to Amanda's mother, she fell in with a questionable crowd while pursuing her BOCES certification, and this is when her descent into addiction began. Amanda described feeling as if she were trapped in a deep, dark abyss, with no way out. She once confided in her mother that it felt like she was being pursued by the devil himself, a chillingly accurate description of the experience. It's a relentless pursuit from an unseen tormentor. Each step forward feels like progress, yet the chilling presence is always there, right behind you. It was heartbreaking to witness Amanda's life consumed by substance abuse, especially for a vibrant 18-year-old with so much potential. But Amanda was a fighter, and with her mother Leslie's encouragement, she was determined to get clean. She made every possible effort to overcome her dependency. Leslie remained a constant pillar of support for her daughter, even during times of financial hardship. The road to recovery, however, was incredibly difficult, as it often is. Amanda desperately wanted to escape that life. She attempted numerous methods to break free from her addiction, but nothing seemed to stick. At some point, to fund her habit, Amanda became involved in the adult trade. Men would reportedly provide her with drugs in exchange for transactional encounters. It was a vicious and destructive cycle. Amanda was aware this lifestyle was unsustainable, but she felt that if she stopped feeding the addiction, her body would revolt against her. Through this life, Amanda became acquainted with many unsavory characters, which led to her having a handler at the time. His name was Adam Patterson. Visually, the age disparity between them was stark. Some noted that Adam could have passed for Amanda's father. He wasn't, of course. He was the one managing Amanda's activities. She was also living with him at his residence on the Tuscarora Reservation in Lewiston. Essentially, Adam acted as a broker, connecting Amanda with his network. It was a transactional arrangement where all parties got what they were looking for. Adam would arrange the meetings between them and provide transportation to these individuals' homes to facilitate the exchanges. You can read between the lines. This, in essence, was the state of Amanda's life just before her untimely death, and these were her circumstances on the day she vanished. Amanda was caught in a constant tug of war between her addiction and the life she was leading to support it. At the time of her disappearance, she was also holding down a job at a pub named Cocktail Bob's and was enrolled in criminal justice classes at Niagara County Community College. Everything took a fatal turn on December 5th, 2008. While Amanda was at her shift at the bar, her roommate and handler, Adam Patterson, placed a call to her. Amanda's next client was the very man Adam had just gotten off the phone with. It's unclear if Amanda knew it at the time, but this individual, who went by Justice, had a dangerous reputation. He was known for his violent temper and intimidating size, often described as a giant. Despite being only 22 years old, he already had an extensive criminal history and was built like a brick house. Furthermore, Justice was just an alias. The man's real name was Antoine Garner, and the arrangement required Amanda to meet him at his residence on Buffalo's east side. The purpose of the visit was to complete the transaction Adam had set up. Back at her job, Amanda arranged for a friend to cover the rest of her shift. With that settled, she got into Adam's car, and they drove off. Upon arriving at Antoine's house, Amanda went inside alone. It's crucial to note that the following sequence of events comes entirely from Adam's testimony. He claimed that after about an hour had passed, Amanda had still not emerged from the house. He then received a phone call from her. Apparently, Amanda told him not to wait, explaining that she was going to be a while. Following her instructions, Adam left. He drove away from Antoine's residence, allegedly under the assumption that Amanda could find her own way home. But that would not be the case. Amanda and her mother, Leslie, were in constant contact, speaking on the phone frequently. So when Amanda failed to return home and wasn't answering her mother's calls, it was immediately alarming. The next day, Leslie's calls to Amanda went unanswered, deepening her concern. This radio silence was completely out of character for her daughter. Amanda always returned her mom's calls, even if she'd been drinking. But now, nearly 2 days had gone by, and Leslie knew she couldn't wait any longer. On December 7th, she officially reported her 20-year-old daughter missing to the police, explaining that Amanda hadn't been home or answered her phone in 2 days. Investigators immediately focused on Adam Patterson, believed to be the last person to have seen Amanda. During questioning, Adam reiterated the same story he would later tell others. He recounted the arrangement with Antoine, confirming he drove Amanda to the house to settle a debt. He claimed Amanda called him to say she'd be delayed, at which point he left. When pressed about his own activities after leaving Antoine's, Adam stated he went straight home, arriving around 8:30 that evening, and insisted he had no idea of Amanda's whereabouts. This meant Adam wasn't the last known person to see Amanda, forcing investigators to shift their focus. All signs now pointed to Antoine Garner. To get answers, detectives knew exactly who their next visit had to be with. Their investigation led them straight to the front door of Antoine's residence. His house was located in a notoriously rough part of the city. When questioned by police, Antoine offered a completely different version of events. He confirmed that Adam and Amanda had been there, but claimed she only stayed for 10 to 15 minutes before leaving with Adam. When investigators asked Antoine if their interaction was intimate, Antoine flatly denied any physical intimacy had occurred between them. According to his account, Amanda came to the house, they spoke briefly, and he provided her with the items she came for. He then claimed she left, without providing any payment in return. Now, based on Antoine's reputation, he wasn't known as the kind of individual to conduct business out of charity. In that world, every transaction is a two-way street. There are no freebies. The idea of him simply giving something away seemed highly unlikely. Perhaps Antoine was having an uncharacteristic moment of generosity. Investigators, however, weren't buying it. They were now at a standstill. They had interviewed the two men who were likely the last to see Amanda alive, and both of them had serious credibility issues. Worse, their stories were completely contradictory. As the investigation stalled, the search for Amanda continued, spearheaded primarily by her mother, Leslie, and her close friends. They scoured all of her usual hangouts, but she was nowhere to be found. As the hours bled into days, and the days stretched into weeks, there was still no sign of her. After more than a month had passed, there were still no leads on Amanda's whereabouts. The fear was becoming overwhelming for her mother, who struggled to hold on to hope. In any missing persons case, the first 48 hours are critical. The fact that Amanda had now been gone for 4 weeks was a terrifying reality for everyone involved. This deafening silence from Amanda's life weighed heavily on her mother and friends. It was impossible for them to move forward while she was just gone. No one knew where she was, or if she was even still alive. That horrifying question was about to be answered, and the break in the case would begin with a single, chilling call to 911. The source of the call remained a mystery. Reports indicated the tip was anonymous, stating only that authorities would find something inside a trash can. Police and emergency responders were immediately dispatched to the east side of Buffalo, and upon arrival, the scene struck them as eerily familiar. Despite being a church parking lot, its location was deeply unsettling. It was just a stone's throw from Antoine Garner's residence, the same area where Amanda was last seen heading to that supposed deal. As investigators approached the trash can in question and lifted the lid, they were confronted with a gruesome discovery. It's critical to note this was January of 2009, which means the weather conditions in New York were brutally cold. It wasn't just cold, it was punishing. So when officers opened the bin, they discovered a body that was frozen solid. The victim's head was completely bare, which initially made it difficult to determine their gender. It appeared to have been shaved clean. The body had been placed in the bin face down by another individual, and there was visible trauma to the face and neck. A butterfly tattoo on the neck was the sole identifying feature, a detail that matched a known tattoo of Amanda's. Authorities had to contact Amanda's family to make a formal identification. It fell to Amanda's brother to perform the heartbreaking task of identifying his own sister. The pain and tragedy that young man must have endured is unimaginable. The confirmation was devastating. He tearfully called his mother, completely shattered by the horrific reality of what he'd just witnessed. By this point, over a month had passed with no answers. Amanda was gone, and her death left a permanent void in the lives of her family and friends. But little did they know, more anguish was on the way. For investigators, the specific location of the trash can raised immediate red flags. The fact that it was discovered so near Antoine's house initially made police believe it was a straightforward case. But Antoine denied everything when he was questioned again. He even went so far as to claim that if he had harmed Amanda, he wouldn't be foolish enough to dispose of her body so close to his home. Regardless, Amanda's body was transported for an autopsy. The objective was to determine the cause of death. But in Amanda's case, this autopsy would ignite a massive controversy that persists to this day. Not one, not two, but 3 separate autopsies were ultimately performed to try and understand how Amanda died. The first was conducted right after her body was found, and its conclusion was shocking. Death by accidental overdose. What was baffling was that the clear signs of trauma on Amanda's body, which were obviously cuts and bruises, received no mention whatsoever. According to that first report, Amanda's death was simply an accident. Class Endas. The medical examiner's theory was that Amanda had become disoriented after using substances the night she disappeared. They suggested she injured her head, removed her own clothes, and then fell face first into a trash can, a scenario that seemed to defy all logic. But that theory just didn't hold up. You didn't need to be a medical doctor or a forensics expert to see that Amanda had been brutally assaulted. It was highly improbable that she died by accident. Moreover, if the official cause of death remained accidental, it meant there were no legal grounds for a homicide investigation. A second autopsy became an absolute necessity and was finally performed in November of 2011. Stephen Cohen, the attorney for Amanda's family, hired 2 forensic pathologists and requested that Amanda's body be released to them for a new examination. Their findings were horrifying. Amanda had been manually strangled. The evidence also strongly suggested that Amanda had fought back against her attacker, as she had defensive wounds on her body. And if that wasn't disturbing enough, her tongue was missing. The two reports could not have been more contradictory. The contrast was stark. The second examination, widely considered to be more credible, pointed unequivocally to homicide. Stephen Cohen also requested a second independent lab analysis be conducted on Amanda's body. The results showed that Amanda's levels weren't at levels high enough to be considered a fatal overdose. So while drugs were in her system, they were not the cause of her death. What she did have in her system, in a significant quantity, was the notorious date rape drug, Rohypnol. Critically, DNA evidence was also recovered from Amanda's body, which marked a significant breakthrough in the case. 2 unidentified female DNA profiles were collected from Amanda's remains, alongside the DNA profiles of Adam Patterson and Antoine Garner. While the source of the female DNA was a mystery, the origin of the male DNA, however, this still didn't answer the ultimate question: who was responsible for her death? All of this uncertainty led to a third and final autopsy, ordered by the district attorney and conducted independently by Dr. Scott LaPointe in early 2012. Yet, this report also failed to determine a conclusive cause of death. Some media outlets reported that Amanda's body had even undergone a fourth autopsy, but the results were reportedly the same. Nothing definitive was ever found. No matter what they tried, Amanda's death certificate continued to list her cause of death as an accidental overdose, a direct result of that deeply flawed initial autopsy. And her mother, Leslie, was determined to get that changed. She took legal action, suing Erie County and its chief medical examiner in September of 2021, nearly 13 years after her daughter was found in a trash can. Her goal was to have the cause of death officially changed to homicide. Leslie's objective was simple. She wanted the ruling amended to murder, or at the very least, to undetermined, which would force the Erie County Medical Examiner's Office to reopen the case. But none of that came to pass, as the lawsuit was dismissed because the statute of limitations had expired. It was an unbelievable setback. More than a decade had passed since Amanda's body was found, and despite multiple autopsies and a lawsuit, the case remained completely stalled. Can you even begin to imagine how Amanda's mother and her family must have felt through all these years? They were desperately searching for answers, only to be met with one frustrating dead end after another. As tragic as it was, a glimmer of hope remained. Antoine Garner's DNA was on Amanda's body, and police had been suspicious of him from the start. But the official autopsy and death certificate stating an accidental overdose effectively killed the investigation. After that ruling, the case went cold, and Antoine was no longer considered a person of interest. But how could investigators dismiss Antoine so quickly, and the possibility of his involvement? It was well known that he was a dangerous individual, involved with a criminal element, and Amanda was last seen alive with him. Furthermore, remember that Antoine claimed he and Amanda never had any physical contact, so why was his DNA all over her body? Amanda's body was also discovered in a church parking lot, just steps away from Antoine's residence, the last place she was confirmed to be. The suspicion surrounding Antoine was palpable and couldn't be ignored, even though he claimed someone was trying to frame him after Amanda's body was found. But then, a very strange development occurred in 2013, 5 years after Amanda disappeared. It had nothing to do with Amanda directly, but the parallels are so disturbing. They're chilling. You see, Antoine Garner was arrested for a series of violent crimes in 2013. Among these charges were assault and the attempted murder of a sex worker he had hired. As investigators dug into Garner's past, we had have gained miners to Garner's past. They uncovered a spree of felony crimes he committed between December of 2008 and January of 2009. Does that time frame ring a bell? It was during that exact period that Amanda went missing and was later found dead. In a move typical of his character, Antoine was also found with a minor and arrested for armed robbery. In June of 2011, Police discovered he had solicited a sex worker and choked her with his bare hands. Does that sound like a familiar pattern of behavior? By now, you're getting a clear picture of the kind of man Antoine is. It doesn't take much imagination to see him as a violent and aggressive individual who would harm anyone who got in his way, or even someone who didn't, like the woman he held captive while robbing her home. But most damning of all was the fact that Antoine lied about being intimate with Amanda. The fact that he was with her the night she disappeared and that his DNA was found on her body is extremely suspicious. I just don't see how that's even plausible. Now, let's set Amanda's case aside for a moment. Antoine was sentenced to 18 years in prison for strangulation, assault, and 2 counts of robbery. He's still behind bars, but he was never officially charged in Amanda's case. It has been 16 years since Amanda and Adam finished their shift at Cocktail Bob's and headed over to Antoine's house. Her frozen body was discovered in a trash can near his home roughly 16 years ago. 16 years ago, when she was laid to rest, DNA from both Antoine and Adam was found on Amanda's body, yet no one has ever been convicted of her murder. There's a substantial amount of evidence that Antoine was probably involved, but we just don't know for sure. But even if he was the one, is it possible that Adam also had a hand in it? He was her boss, and he was the one who arranged the meeting between Amanda and Antoine to begin with. A mother lost her daughter over a decade ago, and as far as we know, the person responsible has never faced punishment. Leslie is still fighting for justice, even though her long battle has been filled with setbacks and a lack of any real progress. She is certain that her daughter was murdered. She's seeking justice for her daughter, who was more than just a person struggling with addiction or an adult entertainer. In April of 2021, new evidence surfaced suggesting Antoine might have used a taser or a stun gun to incapacitate Amanda before he killed her. Advocates for the case claim they have a witness who can testify that Antoine owned a stun gun and used it on Amanda, which would introduce a disturbing new element to the narrative if these witnesses are deemed credible. Campaigner for Erie County Sheriff, Miles Carter, argued that Amanda's case needs to be re-examined, either with a fresh set of eyes or by focusing on the most glaring evidence. There have been no new public updates on this case since 2025. While Antoine is still in prison serving his sentence, no one knows exactly when he'll be released, but it's expected to be sometime soon. Investigators working on Amanda's case must be able to find the smoking gun that will finally identify the killer, whoever he may be. Leslie still holds on to hope, but she is also shattered by the fact that she has fought so hard for justice for her daughter and still has nothing to show for it. She's stuck. She has no idea how to cope with this horrific situation. Ultimately, Amanda's case deserves a conclusion, and a just one at that. It's the only way to ensure Amanda's death wasn't meaningless, and that the personal people who took her life are held accountable for their actions. Amanda wasn't just some disposable life. Like all of us, she was a young woman with her own hopes, dreams, and goals. She was in a tough spot due to some poor choices she had made, but she was fighting her way out of it and trying to get things back on track so she could pursue her dream of becoming a police officer. That was her ultimate career goal. It's devastating to hear about young women, or anyone, falling into such a soul-crushing lifestyle, but any of us could be one bad day or one bad decision away from our own lives spiraling downward. We can only try our best, which is tragically what Amanda was doing. The damage inflicted on her mother after her daughter was so violently taken from her is immense. Her pain is heartbreaking to witness. Amanda Winkowski's story is more than just a mystery. It's a haunting, cautionary tale of how profoundly a system can fail someone in desperate need of help, compassion, and justice. 16 years have passed since her body was found, and yet the truth remains buried under a mountain of conflicting reports, unanswered questions, and endless pain for the people who loved her the most. This case serves as a powerful reminder that behind every single headline is a human being with a story, a family, and a future that mattered. Amanda's life may have been brutally cut short, but her voice still resonates through every single person who continues to demand justice in her name. What do you believe really happened to Amanda Winkowski? Do you think justice will ever be served? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more real-life crime documentaries. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, stay safe. Always stay vigilant and look out for one another. Because as our analysis has shown, the most unsettling stories are the ones grounded in reality.